Hello and welcome to another We Wonder. Today's We Wonder, we're calling it Video Magic. And the reason we're calling it Video Magic is, the importance of video today to everyone's company and how they survive and communicate their value and their brand. Anything you can imagine, their value prop, their story, all comes through video these days. Now, whether that video is seen on your phone, via social media, or whether it was sent via an email with an attachment, or you're just searching YouTube, it absolutely is 100% the most critical thing you can consider these days on delivering that message, because you control it, right? No one else is sitting there creating that story for you. You're telling that story in a way that you really feel communicates your culture, your brand, everything you want to get out there. And it could be as high as a brand entire engagement that you're rolling out, or it could be just as easy as, hey, I'm the sales, the development guy for this company, and I want you to know about me and what the company does and how I offer this service in this little territory, right? So it could be very high, it could be very low, but it could be a startup company with one person, which is critically important, or it could be, Coca-Cola, right? So it could be anything out there. So as you all know, I'm Chris Pfluger. I'm the Chief Development Officer here at We Insure, and I am very excited today to be joined by Kinetic Productions. Both Keegan and Chris are here. How are you guys doing?
We're great, Chris, and I think that you should change that intro and replace Coca-Cola with We Insure.
Well, on our way. I appreciate it. And that's one of our initiatives, as you guys know, because we work with you on a lot of our video, is, we're trying to build that brand awareness in other states, right? So in Florida, we dominate, right? So it was a Florida-based company for the first 10 years. And then last year we started our, national expansion campaign. And I appreciate you mentioning that, because we are now in 26 states from 2 last year. So it's been a very rapid growth. And again, one of our challenges is to be able to tell that story to folks who've never heard of We Insure, which is crazy to hear, right? It's hard to imagine, but there's some areas that no one understands what We Insure is. So we want to be able to communicate that message. And again, we want to communicate it almost as entertainment and education at the same time, right? So we want people to laugh at it, say, okay, these guys have a sense of humor, but this is what they do, and here's their competitive advantages. And truly, it is the best insurance franchise, bar none, in the entire United States. So that's what we communicate most of our messages, and you guys helped us create and formulate a lot of those. So before we get into the detail of the Video Magic, tell us a little bit about yourselves and a little bit about what you guys do.
Keegan, why don't you go first?
I was gonna definitely tell Chris to go first. You don't want to explain Kinetic as the.
I can explain Kinetic. I got it down, but you got it down too. Let's go.
I do. So Kinetic Productions, our main focus is currently our main focus in our portfolio is working with businesses, corporate, doing commercial messaging. Chris has kind of coined the term executive messaging, which basically and essentially means, we help you figure out what your unique message is, what it is that you are, advertising, what service you're offering, what your company culture is. And then we develop your video strategy from there so that it effectively can reach those target audiences that you're after. So that's kind of where we focus our process. Like I said, the bulk of our portfolio is corporate and commercial. We work with a lot of businesses to help communicate their messaging and tell their story. That portfolio ranges from, like business documentary style, which is kind of the DNA of our company. We're documentarians at heart. It is interesting that almost all of our team, they are documentary junkies. So we have like that documentarian approach to everything, the who, what, when, why, where is this happening? We put that into business. We put that into corporate, and it works. So the majority of our portfolio is that. I'm a producer for Kinetic, also sometimes and often in the creative process, serving as a creative director. Chris is our executive producer. You want to take it from there?
Yeah, absolutely, Keegan. I think that was wonderful. And, as executive director, my role is more the business side of things. So building a client relationship. And I loved how you started talking about our process in that. Think of Kinetic, there's really, three main parts to what we're doing. We're helping you with development. So it's, who are your audiences? How are you targeting them? What kind of story do you want to tell? What kind of form is that going to take? Is it video production? Is it animation? Is it motion graphics? Is it stop motion? All sorts of different tools that we have in our toolbox. So, we help you to develop what you're looking for, and then we execute, of course, out there on set, filming, gathering that story as documentarians, as Keegan was saying, or going into full animation and storyboarding and illustrating and making something amazing and come to life. And then the last part of our process is delivery. So, you're not getting just that one video that goes everywhere. You can get multiple different lengths for different platforms, and that's all about targeting the right audience. So I'm glad you brought up process, because, I think that's something that's important to us.
It is indeed. And you guys have done a lot of different types of videos for us. So I think, one of my favorites was obviously the one we did was kind of, comedic, was, we're kind of myself and Pete Crow both joined, and, we had an established team, but we didn't want to just say, hi, I'm Chris, we're here for we're here, welcome, join us, which we did one of those as well. But we did an the office style video, which I thought was very funny, but it's also creative because you get to meet different players on the team. And really it's centered around our main character there, which is our CEO and founder, Phil Vasali. And it got a chance to see some of the back end culture of what we do. We take ourselves seriously, but not too seriously, right? We do a great job for our agents and their clients. But at the end of the day, we like to have fun, and we wanted people to get to know everybody. And so I think that was a very creative way of introducing some new players, as well as talking a little bit about their roles and really focus on the culture of we. But we've also done, our 10-year anniversary. Like, hey, people don't realize we've been around for 12 years, right? When we started this, it was a very small company. We have a few, and then we just grew and grew and grew. Now at the 12-year mark, we're growing, exponentially at a 50, 60% rate. People are starting to recognize us, and they're starting to go back and looking at some of those videos. So a lot of those things are evergreen, for us. And I think that is what the benefit is. I rarely have someone come in and say, man, I watched that video the second that you launched it here on Facebook. But at the end of the week, I'll have 1,000 views. Right? So it is evergreen, and people will go back and say, hey, I saw that video you guys just did, and it's something we did 2 years ago now. So maybe speak to that a little bit, the evergreen nature of this, and still being able to tell the right story.
I mean, well, one of the things that came to mind while you were explaining that fun kind of office themed video that we did, I loved that. I had such a good time, putting that together. But I think it speaks to the relationship of the client and whether you're working with a singular contractor or you're working with a production company. That relationship is really, really important. The reason that we were able to produce something that was so comically accurate, it really, first of all, I love that We Insure doesn't just think about external content. I love that the culture is to celebrate yourselves also internally and for each other. And I love that investment in the culture and the employees that you choose to do, because it's more than just commercials, and it's more than just messaging, and it can have an impact internally as well when you invest in it, and you have that thoughtfulness put into it to say, we love that you all work here. We love that we're all friends, that we've become this family, that we have these inside jokes, and that was very specifically about We Insure, the culture, how comfortable you all are with each other, and just showing everybody who works there the kind of people that you're working with. And I love that. The second thing, like I said, the relationship. So, when the marketing team came to us and said, we want to do this thing on Phil. Well, I already had this understanding of Phil, right? And I understand this understanding of the company, and we were able to create this comedy based on things that I already know. There wasn't any catch-up process, in other words. So I think, if you're wanting to do something that has that heart, that has that truth, that authenticity, building the relationship with your contractor or with that video production company or agency, whoever it is you're working with, is very, very important. And it is advantageous just ongoing, because when you're working with someone that understands your company to that level, your content just elevates, right? Because you're not retelling your story with every single person that you're working with. You don't have to bring them up to speed on what your personality, your culture, your vibe is. The rest of the content that we developed was exactly your talking point there, like figuring out what is unique about We Insure. So that was our first conversation, sitting down with the marketing team and saying, help me understand exactly what this company does. What was the vision? What's the heart of it? What's the purpose? What's the intention? What's different about the structure? Why are people so excited about the opportunity that it offers in terms of franchising? Who are the people that are getting excited about franchising? What do they look like? What are their lifestyles like? Can we talk to them? Can we interview them? Can we create this whole, can we see the company culture really? And then can we create from there? And the first creative problem that we decided to solve was, like you said, brand awareness. Who's we? That's where we started. Who is We Insure? What does We Insure do? When people see it, do they know exactly what it means? Can we fix that? And I think we've just been working since then to answer those questions, and then also figure out, okay, how do we answer that question? But also let's put in the heart, the mission, the story, the dedication, and that's really, I think, how you start Evergreen, is you define those things. You take the time to explore the company and define the creative problem. If you can, define the culture and run with that with your messaging.
Well, I'm going to ask Chris a question here. So, in the nature of a lot of the videos you see these days, I think it's been, because of the delivery channel and because there's so much popularity around people just watching YouTube videos, that you want to see the real behind the scenes, right? You don't want to see, 15, 20 years ago, all you're going to see is really, really well-packaged commercials, if you will, and nothing in more detail other than a brochure. You might see a brochure as you go through. Today, video is almost completely replaced a brochure. Like, people would rather go on and do all of their vetting of a company by looking at videos of agents, right, talking about the company, or you're talking to some recent owners, or the video we just referred to, where you actually see the corporate culture, you get to see the people. And, even reality television has gone down that route, right? You see a lot more of that. People want to see behind the scenes, what's it really like? And you would think on the surface, that might be boring, right? It's not like punchy and we have those stuff. Some of the stuff you see, some of the most interesting, things, whether it's Hard Knocks, right? Watching behind the scenes of a training camp of football. Who wants to see guys spit and hit each other and then get cut, right? I mean, who wants to see that? A lot of people want to see that, right? It's interesting to see behind the scenes. And so pulling back the curtain and really seeing the culture, I think is the norm today, but wasn't for many years. And do you think a lot of the television direction and a lot of the expectations of clients, that dictates kind of what we do today as far as branding and messaging that we put out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that all gets down to authenticity. The audiences have become more and more savvy with video production, commercials, film production, and they are noticing what's fake and what's real. Mm-hmm. And so the more authentic you can be as a brand in your video content, whether that is behind the scenes, whether it is user-generated content, they will appreciate that and connect more with the brand. And they'll allow all the polish as well when you go to broadcast, but they'll know that this is an authentic brand and one that they're connected with. So I think that's all that boils down to, is people are looking for a real connection. And it's, upon us to make sure we're being real.
Yeah. And I think that's well said. I think that, it's also interesting, right? I think we all got conditioned to watching, the Budweiser commercial or this commercial or a Mercedes commercial, and you get a few tidbits in there, but it's just really just brand awareness to say, oh, there's a symbol, there's a symbol, there's a symbol, as opposed to behind the scenes, where it's interesting. And again, we're known for having, the most carrier access. But at the end of the day, there's so much more to the business model that makes it, intriguing and actually beneficial for our producers and our agency owners. That's what we're trying to communicate. It's not just this. You may walk in the door for one reason, but I want you to see why you should be here for life, right? You want to be a franchisee. And again, I'm going to mention this in this broadcast. Franchising is for a lot of people is the F word, right? They're like, I am not doing that. I'm not getting locked down. And so the reality of it is this is a whole different model. Like there's nothing quite like this out there. And we have competitors in insurance, but we are way different, way more fun, way more flexible. And again, we're really about their growth. And so that's what we try to communicate in most of this is we're here for you. Everything we built at headquarters with a new building, with everything that's going on with growth is all surrounded, it all has one mission is to help our franchisees and again, agency owners become the biggest they can be. So that's what we try to communicate. But, and I know we talked about solving that creative problem with Keegan there, time frame. We talk about video. It's obviously appropriate for anybody, right? Anybody, if you're a realtor, you could sit there with a phone and walk down the street and say, hey, look at this house or look at this community. And that's a video. It definitely is a video. And you will get people watching if they're interested in that particular topic, for sure. But the question is, what's the appropriate time frame? And either one of you can answer this for, reaching out in different scenarios. So we talked about the other day, I kind of wrote down 1, 3, and 10. So 1 minute, 3 minutes, and 10 are kind of like a de facto standard out there, I guess, if you will. That's what kind of people default to. So tell me a little about the really what you think is the right time frame to keep people's interest and be interesting about it.
Well, I think that's something I can kind of lead with, and Keegan can chime in. When we're talking about length of video and what's industry standard, what needs to happen. I personally feel as though there is zero industry standard for length of video. I think it is all about the audience and where they will be viewing it and their level of interest. If you have a captive audience, you can make a video as long as you want. If you have someone in a theater and you have fed them popcorn and they are in an amazing experience, obviously we can make something that's 2.5 hours and people will be very happy. If it's something on a social channel and people are scrolling, you might have 15 seconds, you might have 30. If you're doing OTT advertising, which is the commercials you see on Hulu, you're going to have, traditional 30 to 60 seconds. But it is all about where your audience is and what they are expecting. We produced content for an organization called the North Florida Land Trust. And we had Florida legislators in a planetarium viewing the entire St. Johns River from a helicopter broadcast in the planetarium. That video was 10 minutes and no one was complaining. But it is all about, where they are, where you're meeting them, and what their expectation is, and can you hold the audience? So that's kind of my personal thoughts about it is, when someone comes to us and says, we need a 90-second video, it's like, well, let's talk about the audience. Why are we talking about this length? And I think that's crucial. And that's where we come in that development process where, we've been doing video production for a very long time. So we can understand that nuanced audience discussion.
And that's inexperience, right? Someone comes in and says, hey, I think I just need 90 seconds. And that's why we lean on you guys to say, actually, I think we can make this 5 minutes and the audience would love to see a little bit more detail in these areas. And the first thing that popped in my mind when you said that was, I can't imagine going to a movie theater and sitting there and saying, hey, the preview is going to be 12 minutes long.
Right.
One of these, you'd be like, no, don't do it. Don't do it, right? You have a certain amount of time. You have that, 2 minutes maybe or 90 seconds to really get that message, the little snippets of the movie. And you're like, okay, I want to see that or not want to see that, right? So I just can't imagine. So the expectation also of the audience is really what drives it. I love that. That's great. So it could be anything. And sometimes you want it to be short and to the point and just get it out there. And sometimes you want to explain a little bit more about, hey, we're rolling this into this particular, or we have a new product launch or something. We want to give you a little more detail. And the audience is existing owners that are saying, great, tell me all about it. Okay, well, I have 3 to 10 minutes to tell you all about it. And they're going to stick. I love it. Okay. So the last point I have on here is kind of your process, right? So we talked a little bit about solving a creative problem, whether you're doing a brand rollout or just creating a culture or just whatever it might be, brand awareness. We talked about timing, what the time frame is appropriate. We talked a little bit about who, right? So video, I think, is appropriate for an individual contractor all the way up to large companies, just in different methods and different deliveries and as much as you can afford. Because I think that's going to pay you back in spades, regardless of what you spend on it. So the final piece is kind of your process. We had 3 steps, right? We had story development, production process, and then post-production. So, Keegan, did you want to take that one? You want to jump in on that aspect of it? Keegan,
Yeah, Keegan, I think you would be awesome to kind of talk about the kinetic process and those 3 prongs that I mentioned up front, but I'd be really interested in hearing your take on that.
Well, because it also depends per project, right? So it is kind of a little difficult to speak generically about the process of a project, because each project is kind of its own unique workflow. But we do, like, from the generic approach, right? We start with, let's say that it's a brand new client. Honestly, even if it's a repetitive client, somebody we have a relationship with, we always do try to start with, what is your creative problem? What is the problem that we are developing content to solve? And sometimes, even if a client is coming to us and saying, we kind of already know what we want to do, and we ask that question as a follow-up, like, oh, okay, we've seen what your idea is. We've seen what it is that you're wanting to do. But now that we know your creative problem, are you open to a conversation about whether or not that solves your problem, whether or not that is actually the solution, or this approach is actually going to be effective? So whether it's us developing the idea or they're coming to us with an idea that they've already put together, we're still going to discuss the creative problem to make sure that, one of our priorities, if not the top priority, is that we develop content that not only makes our client happy, it's not just what you asked for, it's also effective in what your goal is, and we feel a responsibility on our side as what we'll say is, video strategists, the experts in our field, to understand, is this video, based on our experience, is this video or is this concept, is this going to actually effectively reach the target audiences that they're going after? And we at minimum need to be able to give our opinions there so that we feel like we're guiding our clients in the right direction. The next step from that, once we've identified those creative problems.
Can I ask you one question on that? Keegan, I want to ask you one question. We talked about that since we're talking about the story development and solving that process. Do you ask for, and again, brand new client, do you ask for some other materials to make sure that you're being consistent with what's already being put out?
Sorry, I'm a little bit delayed, I think. Yes, we do. So a part of the, solving the creative problem, a part of getting to know a company, a part of whatever, we will ask for the full branding kit, branding guide, branding guidelines. We want to, we're researchers, like I said, documentarians at heart, that's a part of it. We try not to just take your brand at surface value. In other words, you send us an idea, we look at it and we say, okay, cool, that's exactly what we're going to do. Or we have an immediate idea and we just run with it and we say, that's what we're going to do. A part of the discovery and the exploration is we ransack your website. We look through, we go through, we read everything. We ask you to send over any materials that you're currently sending out in an attempt to reach those target audiences. If you already have something in place that you are marketing that you feel like is not being efficient, we want to see what that is, because we don't want to do it twice. So, and also your content we believe we believe strongly in incorporating your brand into your messaging seamlessly, in a subtle way, or at least in feeling like you're in the environment of that brand. So we lean heavily on your branding materials in the development stage, in the creative stage, to help inform how we're going to design everything else, especially with, say, like animation. The animation, the branding guide is going to really be the framework for the color palette, the style, the typefaces, the characters we choose. All of that is going to be determined by brand. I think, and I feel like we think as a company, that having brand consistency is extremely important. You don't want your content to look like you want people to be able to eventually watch your content and they know that it's yours before they even see the logo. When you think about a Geico commercial or a Progressive commercial coming on, you already know before that logo hits, like, you're in a Geico commercial, you're in a Progressive, because they've put in these little branding consistencies, even though they work with, a lot of different creatives and a lot of different agencies. We think that that's really important, and we make it a priority to include that branding in the marketing, whatever that may be.
Very cool. Okay. Well, let's jump over, if we don't mind. We already talked about getting enough video. We talked about shooting a lot of, different things. We talked a lot about, working with everybody and the consistency. What about post-production? What happens there? I mean, obviously, let's say you're out there and you shoot a video for us and you captured a ton of material. You got a ton of B-roll. You got a ton of interviews. Obviously, when you shoot our company, you probably keep most of the ones that I did and try to say, man, we almost have to cut everybody else out. But we can't do that, right? So we've got to blend it all together. How does that post-production work? How do you get it down to what the most crucial parts?
You know what, Chris, I got to tell you, man, that's one of those magic things. It really is, because sometimes you don't know how it comes together. But I think that, Keegan talking a lot about how interested we are in discovery. That's not just me and Keegan. That's everyone in the organization. We have documentarians in the edit bay. And so when we come back from set, we have two producers at Kinetic. When Keegan, when Kevin come back from set, there is a coming together moment between the pre-production, the development process and the execution process, where the editors are fully brought in. They've been hearing about stuff, but when they're fully brought in and kicked off, and then we try to have this balance of, this is what we're looking for, and then see what they do, what they find, what nuggets they discover. We try not to be overbearing. And also what's really important is the identification of the post-production talent. Which editor on our team is going to develop this content and take it from the field to the final process? And it's those moments, that they discover, those shots that were an afterthought that all of a sudden are found, those sound bites that are these nuggets, where I know I'm picturing Tony with his notepad logging the interview, and he just finds this special moment, or Dave finds this little piece of animation that really makes something happen, or Brock finds this energy element, this one shot. Just, there's all these little pieces where it's kind of like, give a lot of information, but don't give enough, do too much, and just let creatives create. And then there's that collaborative process where we're not delivering something and it's like, here you go. It's like, to the client, what do you think? How does this strike you? Is this where we were going? What kind of surprises are you enjoying? What kind of surprises are too surprising? And so kind of a weird, it's where the magic happens style answer. But we really having room to breathe and create is probably the most important part of the post-production process.
Well, I have to say, we kind of pulled back the curtain a little bit on, we talked about the importance of video, and I think everybody gets that. but really the process of development is much more detailed and engaging than I think people realize. And I'm glad you mentioned it. The clients come in and say, hey, can I just get a 90-second video and let's pop that out and let's move on. So I really appreciate you guys joining me today, because I think it helps everyone understand that when you see the final cut, it was a lot of work behind the scenes, right? Because we're delivering the right kind of message. So if anyone out there is looking for this type of, fantastic, video production work, and work with true creative geniuses in this area, let's take a look at the bottom there. It's kineticproductions.com. And again, you guys have really helped out today and really answered a lot of the questions for us. So I appreciate you joining me.
Well, I mean, calling us geniuses, Chris. Thank you so much. The check is in the mail. Goodness.
Absolutely. Well, you guys have done such a great job for us. We really appreciated that. And again, we wanted to communicate out there kind of what the process was. And I think a lot of folks are looking to do video, and they start off with the phone, and then they end up with something that's much more polished down the road. So this is kind of a great creative process for them to think through. And again, filling in those gaps for them was great today. So I appreciate it very much, and have a wonderful week.
Thank you so much, Chris. We really appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks, guys.